if you're one of those people who right now you're feeling stuck, you feel like that maybe on the outside you've got the success, you've got the life that you've been seeking to create, but on the inside you feel like there's a gap and you're really looking to just find that momentum in your life, in your business, we're here with the expert on that. We're here with Paul Epstein. We're going to talk about how you can begin to make decisions better and actually boost your confidence in the decisions that you're making, especially if you're feeling stuck. So, look, he's got 15 years in the NFL and NBA. He's a two times best-selling author, and he's named one of Success Magazine's most top thought leaders that actually gets results. So, okay, that's going to be us today. We're going to get results from this conversation. He's an award-winning keynote speaker, and he's also the host of the Win Monday podcast. So I'm really excited for this conversation. It's going to be super organic. We're just going to see where it takes us, but those are really the key focuses of today. So Paul, thank you for joining me and welcome.
That was beyond an awesome intro. So bear hugs, my friend. I'm fired up to be here.
Heck yeah. Uh, One of my favorite questions to start this with, especially when we have guests on, is just what does it mean for you to be aligned with your purpose? Like from everything that I've heard that you're doing right now, and from all that I've seen you do when you're speaking on stage, you're captivating an audience. Like, what is that definition for you?
It's funny. I was thinking about this last week, as recently as last week. So this is very hot off the press because, so you know this, Jamie, even if we're kindred spirits, and I already know from our off the camera conversation to now here we are, and now we're broadcasting it to the world. I already know that you and I are kindred spirits. But what I also know about kindred spirits is we communicate in unique ways and in different ways. And you might use a certain word that I don't and vice versa. So the word that I'm going to come back to is flow. Because a lot of people, especially when talking about things like purpose, they say the word flow. And I don't. But I actually do believe in flow. And that's how I would answer the alignment of purpose. It is because right now, and for those that are watching on video, obviously we have many folks that are listening in. But for those that can see us on video, I have a pinata behind me. And this pinata is very much of a symbol that I believe in. When you find something that is aligned with your purpose, when the work starts to flow out of you, you just fall in love with hitting the pinata every single day, no days off, and you're doing the work in the unseen hours. You're doing the things that other people won't or don't. And it's not difficult. It's not a grind. You don't even consider it a hustle. It is just what you're supposed to be doing. And the only way that you know that you're aligned with purpose is when you know what it feels like not to be aligned with your purpose. And for years and years and years, where I checked every single box of success and even felt some significance, I was not broken. I didn't have to be big, but I realized that there was a purpose gap. And that gap, eventually, the compounding effect is, well, I'm no longer fulfilled. Even if this thing or this person or this job is to fulfill me, but now I'm not 10 out of 10 stimulated. I'm not 10 out of 10 count. I am drifting on default and I am living, but I don't feel alive. And all of these things, they sound like they're very out there, but in essence, I had to go through my own personal transformation. I had to discover who I was from the inside out because, Jamie, the thing with not only being aligned with your purpose, because obviously where we're going with a lot of this conversation is about self-discovery. And I fundamentally believe whether you're a leader, an entrepreneur, whomever you are out there, the first step of not only leadership, but life is know who you are. The people that can win the long game, they are dialed, crystal clear on who they are. And I know that to be true because I've had two chapters of my life, pre-knowing who I was and now post-knowing who I am. And so when I talk about things like confidence and putting your purpose in action, it's because those two chapters of my life were pre-confidence and post-confidence. The first one, confidence was not non-existent, but it was inconsistent. And then the second one, now it's unshakable because now I started to connect my confidence to my decisions and actions, and I connect my decisions and actions to who I am at my core. But that's really what this is all about. I fundamentally believe that the ROI of this conversation are the decisions we make and the actions we take the following Monday morning. That's how we become momentum machines. That's how we are all engines of growth, starting with ourselves. And the end game is you do end up aligned with your purpose, but it takes some really muddy water, and it takes a lot of the messy middle to figure things out. Because the last thing I'll share in this kind of riff and intro here, Jamie, is the way that I knew that I was misaligned with my purpose is when I figured out my why and my values through this life-changing retreat that I'm more than happy to unpack. I'm an executive at the San Francisco 49ers, and these 2 days changed my entire perspective. But the biggest thing that I'll always remember on why it's so difficult for many to change, especially folks that were in my situation, it's really hard to change when things are going well. Because oftentimes you talk to somebody and they say, I'm stuck, or I'm not aligned with my purpose. So there's clearly some sort of, I need fixing. And for me, I never felt that. I felt like, well, I'm winning, and my LinkedIn profile looks sexier and sexier by the day, week, month, and year. Everyone's telling me how awesome I am. I'm a kid in a candy store here in the sports industry. Nothing's broken. I have nothing to fix. And that's kind of where I landed on this transformation, because I think that's the hardest time to change, is when you actually have wind at your back and things are going well.
That's so interesting. So then you mentioned a 2-day retreat. So you're
Yeah.
saying that kind of like cracked open this new identity and this new version of you that was just waiting to come out?
It's awesome you said the word identity. I use that often as well. And before this transformation, I never would have said something. I never talked about identity. I never really had a sense of my identity. I thought your identity is what you do for work, to be honest.
Mm.
I thought it was the obvious stuff that you could judge based on the book cover. So what's my culture? What's my ethnicity? Where do I come from? Where are my parents from? Where did I go to school? What brands do I work for? What industry? All this external stuff that you could largely see on somebody's Wikipedia page without reading the context. And for me, the fascinating part was when I realized what my why and what my values were. One of my values is authenticity. And I emerged from that 2-day retreat, know for certain that I was not being fully authentic, because I knew that I was showing up as two different people. I had a work version of Paul and a Paul that showed up everywhere else with his inner circle. And it's impossible to have two different versions of yourself. There's only one you. But until I had clarity, and not just in my mind, not just in my heart, but putting pen to paper, the beauty of these events and experiences, when I keynote and I encourage folks to not only put pen to paper in the room, more importantly, to make sure that there's no sugar highs and we don't just go back to our old ways post event, post keynote, post workshop, post retreat, whatever transformational thing you go through, you'll 99.9% of the time default back to your old self, unless you build momentum to put something bite-sized in action, and then you use that as an engine for your own growth going forward. So when you see Win Monday on my shirt, when you see it over my head, if you were to go to my website, and if you were to just type in winmonday.win, you go to Monday Momentum, which is my 52-week action plan for how I ensure that no speech will ever become a sugar high, no podcast conversation will ever become a sugar high. If we want to transform, we need these disruptors, and I call it self-disruption. Everybody talks about organizational disruption, economic disruption, competitive disruption, all this stuff that's very macro. I'm like, no, 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 no. Disrupt yourself and disrupt your own patterns. And if you truly want to win over the long game, then I knock on your door in your inbox every Monday with saying, here's one new thing you can try on for size to win the day, being Monday, and create more momentum to win the week. It could be a tool. It could be a tactic. It could be a mindset shift. It could be any of those things. And Jamie, the reason I'm so adamant about these disruptors once a week is because I know what I had to do that following Monday morning after that life-changing retreat. I know the decisions that I had to make in private that nobody will ever know about. I know the actions that I had to take without anybody ever knowing about. And I had to create my own playbook. And I honestly feel like my purpose transformation was too random. It was too lucky. I know that this conversation 7, 8 years later is happening with a purpose, on purpose, but I don't want to leave that gift of purpose to chance for the whole world. So when I went through my own transformation as a passion project, separate from me running revenue for an NFL team, I started to pay that gift of purpose forward. They started to call me the why coach at the 49ers because I was privately on nights at weekends. I remember getting to the stadium at 6 a.m. and guiding a team member through it and saying, hey, here's what I went through. And they started to drink the Kool-Aid and they started to put it in practice. And then the water cooler buzz started. Then some of the football coaches approach me. Then some of the players. Then HR eventually says, hey, Paul, what do you think of coaching the why to our onboarding employees? And that's how I became known as the why coach of the 49ers. And that leads to the greatest graduation of my life from career to calling. I felt called to pay this gift of purpose forward. And so now I've been on a mission to fulfill that purpose ever since, but it started in the mirror.
Wow. Wow, you have such a powerful story, and it's just wild that that quickly you started to make the changes and take the leap. Now, I want to hear more about this process. So, how did you figure out your why, and then what is that framework then that became repeatable that you started doing with your clients?
100%. So I will share fast pass story of what I did at the retreat, but then I think more importantly, it's the process I've been coaching ever since. What I did at the retreat, and I did not create this, but I'm happy to share it. It's called a lifeline exercise. So whether folks have said it on a previous podcast episode here or not, I'll give the quick and dirty version of it. If you were to take a blank sheet of paper out and you draw a horizontal line through it, so from the left side to the right side, straight down the middle, the left data point is birth. The right data point is present day. Above the line are the peaks, below the line are the valleys. And you start to write 2, 3, 4 word cues of your greater peaks in life to date. And then on the flip side, the valleys. So above the line, meeting the one, having your first child, getting promoted to vice president, whatever it is, starting your own company, amazing. Those things are all going to be above the line. Below the line, for me, the most significant valley was losing my hero at 19 years old. I lost my dad, and I'm an only child. And so you want to talk about a valley of valleys and having to go from a boy to a man, and then my mom going from a parent to a partner, and I'm not even 20 years old. Yeah, that happened. So how do you unpack that? How do you process that? And look, for me, I had a relatively normal childhood. I don't have anything super extreme that happened at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, but a lot of people do. Some of us call it capital T trauma. Some of us call it lower case T trauma. Whatever it is, those are the types of things that you got to get comfortable putting on paper in order to heal. Because we all have heard that pain can be tied to purpose, but the bridge between pain and purpose is healing. And so the way that you guide people through this lifeline exercise is you have them tell you about the biggest peaks in their life. Then you have them tell you about the biggest valleys. And then as a listener, this is at least a 2-person exercise. The listener is ferociously taking notes about key themes and key topics, and they're looking for the through line. Because the fascinating part here, Jamie, is the same themes emerge whether it's a plus or a minus. So what eventually these themes turn into core values, I always say your values are what get you out of bed. And when they're violated, it's what pisses you off. So the same theme, the same word, the same value can be your biggest pro. It can be your superpower. And when violated, it can show up as kryptonite. That's how these things work. So an example would be, all right, authenticity. I mentioned that's one of my core values. So I naturally gravitate toward very raw and real people. I just go with my spidey sense. Like if I smell something off, you're dead to me. And I know that that's a weakness, but that's just how I'm wired because authenticity is one of my core values. Same thing. I'll pivot off authenticity. Impact. Impact was something that, and I'm happy to share this, we'll unpack it in more detail, but my dad was a continuation school teacher. He was driven by making a difference and impact and leaving people and places better than he found them. Today, my mission, if you were to ask me, was this conversation worthwhile? This podcast conversation right here, right now, I would say if my hero is proud, if he thinks I did a good job, then hell yes. It was a phenomenal investment of time. And that's because I'm driven by impact. So for me, I get out of bed to contribute, to make a difference. And you know, when I play small, Jamie, when you put me in a position where I cannot contribute, if I don't feel like my presence can move the needle, I am not going to be productive. I'm not going to perform at my peak levels. It doesn't matter that I could do the job at a 10 out of 10 level. I just don't want to. But you see how much conviction I have in these assertions of this is what lights me up. This is when I shut down. And this is what happens after you've gone through these very intentional exercises where I know exactly what gets me out of bed. I know exactly what makes me check out. I know exactly what makes me play big. I know exactly what makes me play small. And this is after years of going through this, my own work. But then when you start to coach it through others, you really start to ask yourself, am I an anomaly? Am I different? Am I special? Am I unique? And no, I'm none of those things. But I needed to prove it to myself to be able to coach it to others and say, everybody's wired towards certain strengths. My job is to help them discover the wisdom that's already in their hearts and their minds. And I also want them to be able to heal from the bad stuff that's happened in life. And I realize that none of us are better. None of us are different. None of us are special or unique. The difference is some people have already figured their own stuff out, and the others either A, aren't doing the work, or B, are afraid of the work because this work is not very comfortable to do.
Yeah, and I feel it comes down to having the right guide, to the right
Yep.
mentor who's walked the walk. They've done the work themselves, and it's clear that you've done that. And I love you're just like firm in your conviction of everything that you are and everything that you're not. And I love that. It's just like radiating from you. Uh, so what does that framework look like then? What is it?
Yes.
Yeah, what is it you've
Yeah.
created?
So when I'm coaching people, so here's all right. I'll give the quick sports backdrop. And look, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't love sports, I don't care about sports, I don't. Cool, no worries. I just happen to work in the industry for 15 years, and where I extracted a lot of lessons and insights are this: when you're in the NFL and NBA, and in my case, I'm in the front office, but you still have a front row seat. Like, I'm still an executive for 2 Super Bowls. I'm still opening up $1 billion stadiums. I'm still in the locker rooms. Like, I'm still in those environments. I just wasn't the player. What you're exposed to is this: you're around the top 0.00001% in the world at what they do. So if you think about it, once you're at those peak levels, in my case, being exposed to NFL and NBA athletes, you know what their separator is not? It's not their gifts. It's not their talents. It's not their skills. It's not their abilities. It used to be. When they played in college, they were significantly better than the competition. In high school, it was a man amongst boys. In the NFL, no separation. You're already the elite. You've already separated yourself from the pack. So I started to obsess and study. So if it's not your gifts, talents, abilities, and skills, then what is your separator? Why do some players go on to be Hall of Famers and some of them have 6-month careers and flame out? They had the same gifts. So what is the difference? And you go in the lab and you get to know these players and human beings and people, and then you study it from the inside and out. And here's what I've realized: there is a different currency that the greatest of the great play with, that the rest of the world, even in their own locker room, do not. And that currency is confidence. They have figured out how to have inside out confidence, the ability to bet on themselves in the most adverse of situations, to have the most resilient mindset, to get locked in on whatever that mission is that they're on. They attach meaning to things, they make things matter. We can call that something big like purpose. In the moments, they figure out a way to be meaning and mattering and momentum machines. They compete not with other people, they compete with themselves. In other words, am I better today than I was yesterday? What is the price I'm willing to pay to be better tomorrow than I am today? and they don't take days off. That is somebody that it doesn't matter if they're in a negative or toxic environment. It doesn't matter if their team lost 10 games in a row. It doesn't matter if there's a global pandemic. They bet on themselves and they have this amazing gene that they cultivate to figure it out. To figure it out. Here's a quote I want to share, and then I'm going to talk about the process that everybody listening in can implement. So when I was at the Clippers, which was the first NBA team I worked at, this was at a time where across the hall were Kobe and Shaq. So the Lakers are winning championships. The Clippers, we did the impossible. When there's 82 games in a year, it is damn near impossible to only win 17. But they figured it out. Okay, these Clippers figured out how to win 17 out of 82 games. It is impossible to be that bad, but they figured it out. So ESPN, my first year on the job, called us the worst brand in sports. Then the front cover of Sports Illustrated headline. It's a Clipper fan with a paper bag on their head that says, "Just shoot me." And the headline says, "Worst franchise in sports history." And I had to sell that. So in that environment where losses and negativity and toxic vibes were just the table stakes, that's just what I walked into. And I soon realized after I was I started with 12 people. So it was a pledge class of 12 that started with me. And I was the only one to make it to the third month on the job. And what I realized was this: the losses were never my fault, but they became my responsibility. The losses were not my fault, but they became my responsibility. So now for everyone listening in, negative environments, toxic coworkers, all the problems, the pain and the challenge around you at a micro or macro level, it may not be your fault, but it's always your responsibility. The way you show up tomorrow, your mood, your energy, your attitude, your effort, your reactions, that's your responsibility. So I don't have much patience for a victim mentality, as you can tell. Bad things happen to me all the time, but I'm locked in because I learned these confidence principles from my time in the NFL and NBA. I started to apply them. Now I coach them to others, and I'm like, my gosh, this, you know what, works. Like, it works. So here is the exercise for everyone listening in. The best news I have for you today is, as busy as you are, it'll only take you 1 minute, and you only have to do it once a week. So I don't care who you are, you have a minute in a week. Here's my formula for confidence and then the process. My formula for confidence that I have now coached out to, from Olympian athletes to Navy SEALs to Shark Tank entrepreneurs to you name it. Here's the formula. Confidence equals values times action. Confidence equals values times action. The multiplication is how consistently you do it. In other words, show me a person that takes consistent action on their values, I will show you a confident person. Period. Full stop. So the way that this shows up in a journal, all that you have to do if you're starting from scratch, let's say you don't know your core values. If you do, pick your strongest core value. If you don't, cool. Google personal list of core values. You're going to see a lot of options online in Google. There's a list of 50, there's a list of 100. Pick the one that jumps off the page. Pick the one that resonates the most with you. So now that you have that value, here's the line. You're going to journal. For the week ahead, I will live my value of blank by blank. I'll repeat that. For the week ahead, I will live my value of blank by blank. The first blank is the value that you just chose, and the second is an action that you connect to that value. Remember my confidence formula. Confidence equals values times action. This is how you put it on paper. This is how you bring it to life. So now, Jamie, last thing I'll share is I want to play with 2 hypothetical examples, and then I'll kick it back to you. Let's say that somebody listening in, if you chose the value of joy, okay. So we would sit down in the journaling chair and you would journal something like, for the week ahead, I will live my value of joy by cooking my favorite meal. Cool, simple, small, accessible. Anybody in the world can do it. For me, I'm throwing bacon in a pan. What are you doing? Whatever brings you joy, you do you. Now let's pivot from joy and let's up the ante a little bit. Instead of joy, let's go with a core value like courage. So you could journal something like, for the week ahead, I will live my value of courage by having that challenging conversation that I've been putting off. You're not having the conversation because Paul said, you're having the conversation because courage is a core value. And that's how simple the process is. One caveat. I don't care if it's a Navy SEAL, an Olympian, me, or you. If you do this process once or twice, I promise you no permanent change and no transformation. It just hasn't had the time to become muscle memory and internalize. In other words, it's not yet a habit. The good news for all of us is there's enough science and research to back habit formation. And for the average person with a consistent process and system, habits form in 3 to 4 weeks. So in other words, for this journaling exercise, you have to pass the threshold of habit formation. Do it for 4 weeks. One value, joy for 4 weeks, courage for 4 weeks, growth for 4 weeks, impact for 4 weeks, whatever it is. And that's when your life starts to transform. That's the habit loop of value leads to decision, leads to action, value, decision, action, value, decision, action. And now to use one of your words, Jamie, it becomes a part of your identity. This is the process that changed my life that I did on my own. I started to coach it to others, and it works 100 out of 100 times for everybody that makes it to the 4th week.
Wow. It's so simple. So
That's it.
simple, but also what's not simple is actually continuing to do it, continuing to be
Yes.
consistent. And one part of this, so it wasn't part of like the core decision. Okay, I said the word instead of what I was trying to say. It wasn't part of the core like framework that you had there, but then you mentioned decisions. So then I'm curious how decisions plug into that formula.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, in my latest book, Better Decisions Faster, Captain Obvious once said, you should go make better decisions faster. Trust me, it did not become a bestseller because of the title, even though I think it's a cool title. And shout out to a lot of folks that chimed in to make it even better. But I will say this, I knew that nobody would make better decisions faster if I didn't share the how. There had to be some sort of a process, a system, or a framework, because I think that that's how we really can bring things to life. So inside of the book, and I'm not going to give everything away because some of it you're actually going to have to unpack, but I do want to give kind of that executive summary. And this is how we all can make better decisions faster. And this is why it instantly became a bestseller. And now it's just driven a bunch of keynote stages all over the globe. It's because of the simplicity of the model and the effectiveness of the model. The model is called the head, heart, hands equation. So head, heart, hands. Head is your mindset. Heart is your authenticity, so your truth. And hands are action. The equation is head plus heart equals hands. In other words, when deciding whether to use your hands, whether to take action, there's 2 checkpoints, head and heart. Head, do I think it's a good idea? Heart, do I feel it's a good idea? And just like when we're all driving a car, we pull up to an intersection, we know exactly what to do. Green is go, red is stop, yellow is assess. And that's how the equation works. When your head and heart are on board, it's a green light. 10 out of 10 times you take that action. The opposite, no head, no heart, red light. Don't do it or stop doing it. And the messy middle is when either your head or your heart are on board. So I wrote the book with a mission that we all deserve a green light life. The world would be a better place if we all are in green light relationships, have green light health, green light careers. I could keep going. Green light, that is what we're after. Also, if we're unaware, I don't care how superhuman we might feel, we're going to run a lot of red lights. I ran more than my fair share, and it was not because I chose to, it's because I was unaware. So what I wrote the book and I created the head, heart, hands equation for, it's to create the awareness so we stop running reds. Because the compounding effect of months or years of red lights lead you to places like, I'm burned out, I'm stuck, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled. Nobody got there overnight. It's the compounding effect of red lights. And we ask ourselves months or years later, how the heck did I get here? Well, that's how. And then the messy middle of yellow, which I'm more than happy to unpack in a little bit more color, but that's the head or heart. And so end of the story is more green, stop running reds, and I wrote better decisions faster to conquer and navigate the messy middle of yellow. That's how better decisions faster ties into this, because our values and our why and our purpose, that's our heart. That's our heart. And we live in a world that is all head and hands. I always say you should lead from your heart because it's become a forgotten art. If I'm talking to an entrepreneur out there and you want to outwin the competition, let them continue to play the head and hands game. You play the head, heart, and hands game, and the heart becomes your competitive advantage because business and life have squeezed the heart out of far too many people and places. So I'm on a mission to re-inject heart back into humanity.
The world needs more of you. Like truly. Wow. Yeah, and it's wild how it can work in the direct opposite way too. Everything that you do can be on purpose. It can be hitting those green lights, so to speak. And you'll wake up one day and realize the epic life that you've created for yourself and your family because of those decisions. So, leading with your heart. Love it. Okay. So then I know you've actually got a quiz online and I've got it pulled up here. I can't wait to do it once we get off of here, by the way. So talk about that. What is the outcome of that quiz that we can expect to find?
Amazing timing to bring this up too, because since we just unpacked the head, heart, hands equation, I believe that so it's called the confidence quiz. And if you were to go to my website at paulepsteinspeaks.com, I'm sure we'll have it in the show notes. On the main nav bar, just hit confidence quiz. Here's the cool thing. 1, it takes less than 5 minutes. 2, at the end of the 5 minutes, you'll have a confidence score of 1 to 100. 3, it's free, so that doesn't suck. And then also, I don't just give you a full confidence score, I give you a head score, a heart score, and a hand score. So it goes exactly with these 3 areas that we just talked about. So head is more about how confident is your mindset. The heart is more about how confident are you in knowing who you are at your core. So are you making decisions from your heart? Are you taking actions from your heart? And then hands is, are you pulling triggers? Because we could talk till we're blue in the face about head and heart. If you don't take action, then it just doesn't count. It just doesn't matter. So we dissect. There's certain questions that are more about mindset, some that are more about authenticity, and some that are more about action. And that's the beauty. You know, I think there's just too much paralysis going on. There's too much lack of clarity going on. And the end result is there's a lack of confidence in our decisions and actions. Now, here's the cool thing for everyone listening in that's going to jump into this quiz. I don't care if you get a 92, an 81, a 70, or a 48. I want you to think of the data point, the result. It's just a data point of today. Nothing is permanent. Trust me, if we don't take care of a 92, it can fall real fast. And trust me, if you landed on a 48, it can rise over time. Because here's an insight that will be very simple and it's easy to remember. Confidence is not a light switch. It's a dimmer switch. I'll repeat that. Confidence is not a light switch. It's a dimmer switch. A light switch is either on or it's off. Meaning high score, I'm confident. Low score, I'm not confident. Incorrect. A dimmer switch, we can grab it moment by moment, decision by decision, and action by action, and we can plus it up through processes like a journal, through different things. And on the back end of the quiz, we're going to hook you up with a lot of action planning and resources that are instructed and designed for you to just grab that score today, like it's a dimmer switch. And here's what we need to do to plus it 1, plus it 2, plus it 3, plus it 4. So no matter what your data point today is, it's not on or off. It's just today. And now let's work to take it up those percentile points.
Interesting. Yeah, it doesn't have to stay the way that it was yesterday. That's amazing. It's true. It's a dimmer switch, though. I've never thought of it like that. So the confidence, it's so interesting that was the one thing that you noticed upon those players was their level of confidence. Wow.
Yeah, and it was authentic confidence, you know. Like I think nowadays, I mean, who doesn't look confident on Instagram? Who doesn't look? I mean, come on
Right.
now, you know. It's just all these best moments and best lives, and no, it's behind closed doors. I found that confidence was just that separator because everybody can win in blue skies, but few can win during the storm.
Yeah.
And so in sports, you're handed storm after storm after storm. There's always going to be better players. There's always going to be something negative or something toxic. There might be a bad weather game. Maybe somebody, you're supposed to catch the ball, somebody overthrew you. Well, that's the quarterback's fault, but oh, that's a victim mentality. Are you going to suffer from that? Or what I learned, Jamie, is next play up. And this is a metaphor for life. Take sports out of it. If I had a good play and I start to taste my own success too much, I'm not going to show up as hungry the next play. Now my ego is going to get involved. But if something bad happened, I have two choices. I could bring that bad energy to the next play in sports or the next day in life, or I could say, it was just yesterday. In other words, adversity is not a one-way street, it's a cul-de-sac. You always have the opportunity to turn around. I don't need to let one negative thing become two negative things. That's my choice. I didn't have a choice of the first negative thing. I have a choice on how I respond. And I learned this well before my NFL NBA days. I learned this through being a sales guy. So if I had one person on the other side of the phone when I was making 200 cold calls a day when my career started and they told me to F off, I had two choices. I could bring that bad energy to the next call and A, I guarantee you I wouldn't make the sale. B, they would just feel my negative energy. C, like I never gave myself a chance to win. And so it sounds very simple when you think of it that way, but then people don't apply it. They don't practice it. If something bad happens to any of us today, the propensity is now that bad energy carries into tomorrow. And you had a choice to not let that happen. Regardless of how severe things are, you know, like when I lost my dad at 19, like there were just certain things that I didn't do them intentionally back then. Frankly, I was too young to. I didn't have all these insights when I was 19, but I was very particular, mainly because of the leadership and guidance of my mom, who now was my partner, given that I was an only child. And we were very careful about who we surrounded ourselves with. You know, like during this healing process, I knew like, what do I need in my life right now? Do I need a lot of people that are going to cry it away with me? Do I need strong rocks that are just going to be a little bit grittier and more resilient? Do I need more positivity, more energy? Like, I think all these different things, like, I would have never chosen to lose my hero, but we had a choice on what happened next. And I think that's the key insight is you can't have things like purpose and passion and all these wonderful gifts that we want if you're not intentional about what's going to happen next. And you always have ownership of next. You don't have ownership of now all the time. You have ownership of next. And I think that's a key distinction where I never have to lose control of my future because I always own next.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up now just automatically because that's where I was going to go next. Was like, well, what about now? Do we have control of the now? But I agree. Sometimes it just feels like you're a little bit out of the now, and you can't control the things that are happening now or shift your reality. Why Monday? Because we've got Win Monday. I don't think we've really gone into that. Like,
No,
what
we
makes
haven't.
Monday the day to really shift things and start a new week?
Lovely question. Dating back to that retreat. So remember how I told you, all right, my life changed and it was all that. And I'm, you know, one of 20 execs at the Niners, and that was my transformation point. But here's where Monday came from. If I was today delivering a keynote speech, or even now in this podcast conversation, I will fundamentally fall on the sword for this statement. The ROI of today's conversation comes down to the decisions we make and the actions we take on Monday morning. The reason I have such conviction in that statement, I will repeat it, the ROI of today's conversation comes down to the decisions we make and the actions we take on Monday morning. Because it was the decisions I made and the actions I took following that retreat that changed my life. The retreat did not change my life. It awakened me. It inspired me. It got me to realize that there could be a bigger, better, faster future where I could step into all of more of that authentic self. But at the end of the day, It was the following Monday morning that changed my life. And so now I'm very much in the camp of no sugar highs. Any speech can lead to a sugar high. Any podcast, and I say this as the host, it's not a knock on Jamie or anybody, but I know that if I don't, as part of the Win Monday podcast, if I'm not following it up with ways we can put it in actions, new decisions we can make, then eventually the default setting is people go back to their own ways. And yeah, we're inspired, but then we get back in the grind and hustle. We get back in our hamster wheel and family and work and life, and it just happens. And then we reflect back on that once inspiring thing, and poof, it's a sugar high. So I very much have a warm and fuzzy invitation to everybody to say no sugar highs allowed. You decide whether it becomes a sugar high, but decisions and actions are required the following Monday in order to not have a sugar high. So kind of with that spirit, I thought to myself, what do we need to do to make it as simple and accessible as possible to create a winning life? And winning is what you make of it. There's seasons to winning. Sometimes you want to win in your career. Sometimes you want to win in your health. Sometimes you want to win in your relationships. Sometimes you want to win in your finances. And yes, while we all want to win all things all the time, you're going to prioritize different things at different seasons of your life. And that's a good thing. That is a really good thing. So to win holistically, how amazing would it be if we could win the first day of every week and have momentum to carry forward? And then we rinse, repeat the following week, and then the following week. And that was the spirit of Win Monday. Because when we can win a day, we now have a playbook for how to win the next day. The hard part is figuring out how to win one day. And so that's really kind of, when you ask me, how do you create more momentum? And that's why I created Monday Momentum. And anybody that goes to winmonday.win, name, email, free gift from my heart, Remember I said we need more heart in the world. I have 52 heart-driven lessons and principles and insights, all a part of Monday Momentum, which is all at winmonday.win. And that's really been the spirit of it for me, because if you think about, you want to win the long game, you can't win the long game without first winning Monday. And it's really just this birthplace of momentum. It's this birthplace of growth. And the last thing I'll share about this, Jamie, is I don't think the world needs more TGIF. I think the world needs more TGIM. And go back to what I said about confidence being the currency of NFL and NBA athletes. I boil it down to separation season. The compounding effect of how we show up allows us to separate ourselves from the rest of the pack. I first learned of this insight, and then it all ties back to Monday. I first learned of this insight when, especially as an entrepreneur, I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs listening in. You know what one of the fundamental differences between an employee and an entrepreneur is? As an entrepreneur, we don't check out November and December because it's our business baby. This is our business baby. Like, I'm not saying, and look, I'm not one of those 10x your life and grind and hustle and work on Christmas. I'm not saying that either. I am saying properly recharge. I am saying properly reset. Take care of your health, your well-being, family first, always, always, always. Like, that is me to my core. Look at my Instagram. All you're going to see is me hustling my you-know-what off and my family. That's it. Like, I've just simplified it down to two big rocks. And so for me, I don't work harder on November and December, but I just stay consistent with what I would have done in September or March. And that same principle that I call separation season, imagine if somebody doesn't take their foot off the gas in November, December, and the compounding effect after a decade of doing that versus everybody else, you're going to win exponentially more. And now the same applies for how we manage our week. I don't need to motivate or inspire people to try harder or be more positive on Friday. You cannot separate by trying to do better on Friday. Everybody is in good spirits, good moods, and they're just looking to close strong and then enjoy the weekend. I'm not a +1, +2% type of guy. I'm a needle mover guy. And I know that if we can up our game on Mondays, 20%, 30%, 40%, and now I do that every Monday, imagine the compounding effect of that separation season. So I built Win Monday for the separators. I built Win Monday for the people that want to attack their dreams, their goals, their ambitions. We call it the club of unreasonable ambition because we want a winning life. and we help each other to understand what our priorities are and where we want to succeed, where we want to feel significance, and how we want to live with purpose on purpose. It's all part of the Win Monday spirit. But I intentionally didn't want to create Win Tuesday, Win Wednesday, Win Thursday, Win Friday. Monday is where momentum and growth start. So that's who we are.
Mm. And you get a fresh start every week. So if last
Every
Monday
week.
it was a little rocky, you get a, it's like you hit the reset button. I love that.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that, Jamie. Just a real quick point on that too, because it's so spot on. Here's the beauty of Monday Momentum and why I created it. The fact that there's one new lesson or insight or tip or tool or tactic on a Monday, I'm very human and real about this. Even if I'm looking in the mirror, I'm not ready to implement something new every week. I'm not. Even me, the instructor, the teacher, the coach, I am not. So I know that most are not going to be. But the beauty of this weekly dose is it's very much like this consistent drip. It comes to you. Sometimes it's the right day, the right message. You're ready to hear it. You're ready to act on it. Or something happened in life where you say, this is absolutely perfect. I'm getting out of this relationship. I'm thinking of a career pivot. I'm ready to finally take action on my health goals that I've been telling. Whatever it is. So that's how we constructed it. It's very much a custom your own journey. We're going to knock on your door once a week. You're going to grab some, you're going to leave some, and that's okay because we're not going anywhere. So I just want to be the happiest neighbor as possible, knock on your door every Monday, and sometimes it's the perfect meal, sometimes it's not. But as long as we are mission aligned and we're kindred spirits, there's more good than anything else. And that's how you find good, like-minded, like-hearted people in the community. So it is that magical reset button every single week, like you said.
Totally. And what's wild too is I feel those who like go back to the green light, red light, those who have taken the red light and gone through it most of their life, are usually the ones who only assess this once a year. And they hit that reset button on
Amen.
like New Year's Eve versus like you're giving them an opportunity to look at once a week, what can we shift? And it's one little thing. And so, yeah, I think that's much, much more needed. And maybe if the world caught on to that more, which hopefully more people learn about this through this episode, we'd have more people, you know, taking the green light approach instead.
Absolutely.
Mm. So as we kind of wrap things up here, we'd love to know exactly where we can find you again in these resources. And then if you have any final remarks or anything you'd like to just leave the listener with today, feel free to take the stage.
I love it. Well, most important, as we just talked about Win Monday, I will repeat winmonday.win. It takes you to Monday Momentum, putting your name, putting your email, and I promise you 52 needle moving opportunities a year that are just a free gift from my heart. So winmonday.win. And if you're out there and you're leading a team, a culture, an organization, and you're thinking of a big event or a retreat, then of course those are the opportunities that just light me up. So paulepsteinspeaks.com. If this message resonated with you and you feel like injecting this into your team and your culture and your organization, then paulepsteinspeaks.com is going to have anything and everything from speaking information to books to you name it. And I'm always ready to meet at the 50 for folks that gravitate toward the mission and message.
Wonderful. So much value today. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.